Check one, check 1, 2, 3. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. Okay, today we're talking with a production sound mixer who also does post-audio and live sound. Based out of Orlando, Florida, please welcome Michael Reed.
Hi, Michael. Glad to be here.
Hey, man. Glad we could finally connect. I know we've met around town at various events here and there, and I'm glad we could get you on here.
Yeah, glad to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
All right, so let's get going with when you're on set doing production sound, what's in your audio bag?
Oh, yeah, I forgot that's how you always start these things. It's been a while since I've listened to your podcast. So, yeah, I have a very modest rig. I have a Sound Devices MixPre 10T and a K-Tech bag with an Orca harness. I have an Audio Root eSmart distribution box for power. I have 3 remote audio rechargeable smart batteries. I have 2 wireless systems. I have a Audio Limited A10 system, which is like a stereo system. It's actually owned by Sound Devices now, but when I bought it, it was Audio Limited. And my transmitters for that system are in the A block, so they're 470 to 548 megahertz. And then my other wireless system, which is newer, is the Electrosonics DSR4. It's a 4-channel slot mount receiver, and it's great. It's small and powerful, and I really like it. And I have 4 transmitters for that. I have 2 DBSMs and 2 DBSMDs. The DBSM takes 1 battery and the DBSMD takes 2 batteries. Good for those long sessions. Both of those systems use Sanken COS 11Ds. I got 2 wired for the Audio Limited, which is a 3-pin LEMO. And then I have 4 for the Electrosonics. That's a TA5 connector. For camera hops, I use Sennheiser G4s. I have 2 transmitters going out of the bag. So I could either, use it for program monitoring or a boom op or camera hop. So they're multi-purpose. So 2 transmitters, 4 receivers, and I can do that any way I want. And then I also have some Comtex for program monitoring, 1 transmitter, 3 receivers. And for microphones, for my outdoor shotgun, I have a 416. For inside, I have 3 Audio-Technica 4053Bs. And then I also have 4051 capsules for those, so I can use them for location recording, which is great. Set that up stereo, usually ORTIF is what I like, and that works pretty good for me. Got a couple K-Tech boom poles and some stands, and for timecode, I use JB1s, and I really like those. They're small. You don't have to worry about any networking or anything. You just jam them, and they rock.
Tell me about your new Electrosonics 4-channel, because I've been thinking about that one.
I like it a lot. Okay, so go back in time a little bit. The first 4-channel slot mount receiver was Wizzycom. And I was looking at that one, and it looked really nice. And I still think that's a great product. I really like Wizzycom. And then Electrosonics announced theirs, and I leaned more towards that because it's kind of a brand name people look for in our industry. When people ask for program monitoring, a lot of times they just say, hey, I need Comtex, right? And when they look at your wireless kit, they want to see a Sound Devices recorder, and they want to see Electrosonics wireless. It's just kind of the Coca-Cola of our industry. So I want it for that reason, I think, more than anything. Obviously, it's a great product, but over the Wizzycom, because they're both great products. And then right before I got it, Sound Devices released the Nexus, which was also really enticing. That is just an amazing unit, but it was just out of my budget, and out of my needs. I don't really need 16 channels coming into my bag usually. Actually, I've never had that where I needed 16 channels of wireless coming into my bag. So for price and reliability and pretty much every reason I can think of, I went with the Electrosonics DSR4, and it's served me really well. I've only had it maybe 6 months now, and I use it on every gig. And what I've actually shifted to is like when I put lavs on talent, I'm almost always using that. And then if I do a wireless boom, I use the A10, and that works really well. And that gives me 6 channels coming in, and that's usually what I need, or all I need. Usually I need less than that.
Let's talk about some projects that you've done, and we can jump around as needed, but you were sound supervisor and re-recording mixer for Thursday the 12th. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, that was one I just did. Great scripted feature, produced and written and directed by Brad Lyon, and he's awesome. He had a really great cast. I mean, everybody in it is great. He had Todd Bridges from Different Strokes. He's a great actor. And also there's an actor, Brian Sutherland. He's really good comic relief. But what's really great about the movie is the script. It's a really funny movie. It's a spoof horror movie. It's more funny than scary.
Where was it shot?
I don't know. So I was the post engineer on it. So I wasn't there, and it was shot in multiple states, and they told me, but I'd hate to repeat it. I think Ohio was part of it. It was maybe Michigan. I don't think they shot any of it in Florida. But Brad brought it to me in the final hour right before he had a bunch of screenings. And he had some data loss and no audio mix and very little time. And so he stayed at my house. I barely knew him. And so he came over and we just cranked on this thing 14 hours a day for 16 straight days. And when he left my house, I actually made the DCP file for him to bring to the theater. I'd never done that before. And I wasn't sure if it was going to play, but it worked. It worked great. And then he took it on a tour and did like 10 different movie theaters and had great results. And he's gotten to a bunch of film festivals with it and things. So I think he's going to do well. He seems to make money off all his movies, which is great. So many of these projects I work on don't make any money. They're passion projects where he's actually making money off his movies.
That's cool. When you were putting this thing together and doing the mix, were there any particular challenges that you had to handle?
Not really. I mean, time was our biggest obstacle. We just didn't have the time to work on it. And when I first got it, the session, so he brought over the video session, right? It was in Final Cut, is where they cut the movie in. And, there were files missing. And so we had to like rebuild the project and start from there. And it wouldn't export. So we had to export, like cut it in half and export half and half. And then the half that wouldn't export, we cut that in half and exported that half and half. And finally figured out what was causing the issues, got the whole movie exported, cranked away at it. The recording was good. Whoever recorded that, their sound mixer, did a great job. It was good. They, had clean lavs and boom on everything. And that was the first project that I got to use Auto Align Post 2 on. I don't know if you've used this plugin, but it's amazing. It kind of changes the way I mix. So before I would kind of be like, okay, the boom sounds good or the lav sounds good, and kind of pick one and go with that, and then switch it up if I had to. Where this auto syncs them together, it phase aligns them, and you can just mix the two together and just fade them in and out as you want. And there's no comb filtering. It just sounds wonderful. And you don't have to grab 2 clips and align them. So you tell it what track is your reference track. So you're like, okay, this is my boom track. It's my reference track. And then you just highlight every clip on your lav track. And then you just hit sync. And it just magically syncs everything. And it's fantastic. It's doing it dynamically. So if the boom pole operator is moving closer and further away, it's adjusting for that. And it sounds great. It really does. And the movie sounds great a lot because of that plugin.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I used to use a vocal line type thing back in the day too, just to, someone would do an ADR type thing and we would just, it would align it well. But sometimes you had to like play with it. Instead of doing the whole phrase, you would do like a couple words and it would sync those. If not, it would pull and stretch. But this is a whole different plugin.
This is similar to that, right? And I have Vocal Align and I like it and I've had it for a long time. But it's clip based. So you select, we say regions back in the day, right? A region, right? So you grab a region and you learn it. And then you grab the region below it, or that's usually how I do it. I put my guide track on the top and then I go below it and you grab it and then you conform. So region by region. But think about how long that would take on a feature film where you might have 1,000 clips, right? So to just be able to say, do the whole track at once is really cool. Well, I don't want this to turn into a post-production podcast, but I feel like in the post world this year has just been like this year's been amazing. It really has, with just all the AI stuff that's come out for noise reduction and de-reverbing things. It's really great. And I could just go down the list. I mean, that's actually a cool story if you want to hear it. I know it kind of takes us off topic.
Tell us, like, what software are you using?
Okay, well, I use Pro Tools, and I've been using Pro Tools for 20 years, and it's actually the only thing I want to look at. I'll go into other apps, but I like to work in Pro Tools. And a lot of people complain about it because the high price of admission, right? You got to pay for a subscription now. I think it's totally worth it for the feature set you get. Well, let me kind of take you into a story, because I'm working on this TV series called Active Shooter, and it's the exact opposite of what I just told you about Brad Lyon's movie that was very great sounding right out of the box. These first 2 episodes that I'm working on are very problematic. I mean, there's just noise and distortion, and it's just really challenging. And so I got it in February, and I started hacking away at it a little bit. I don't really have a deadline on this thing because they're slowly shooting all these different episodes. I mean, they probably won't release it for like another year or something. So I'm like slowly hacking away at this thing and cleaning it up really good. And I use RX10 as kind of like my main toolkit for that. And I go in there and I open it up and I look at it and I'm removing things and I'm taking a lot of time sculpting the sound. And then like halfway through the spring, clarity drops from Waves, and it's like a new AI denoise algorithm, and it's really good, and I'm really blown away by it. I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And then I got D-Room from Accentize, which was a company I never heard of, but they also make Chameleon, which is a great reverb plugin for recreating acoustical spaces very quickly, which saves a lot of time. And so I got that, and I'm like, wow, so now I have this great D-Reverb plugin too, because Isotope's T-Reverb's not that great. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I go through the whole movie with that. And then Waves drops their own D-Room, which is even better. So like, oh man. So then I go and redo the movie with the new tool. And then like just last week, another plugin comes out, Revive, and it's even better. So I'm just like watching all these, and I'm still on the same project. I mean, it's done, but it hasn't shipped. So I'm just like, oh, I can go touch it up again with the new tool. So I just keep going back to this really challenging audio and trying the new tools. And just over the course of this year, I'm watching them evolve to get better and better and better. And then there's free ones that are out. There's one called Goyo that's free. That's really impressive. I think it's only going to be free for like another month or something. So better get on that quick if you haven't downloaded that yet.
Who makes that one?
It's called, Supertone, I think is the name of it. I had never heard of them, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I would say like if you want like a one-stop button that just fixes it, Revive by Accentize it's pretty amazing. But I guess Cedar is coming out with some new stuff too. So it's just really interesting. Just that the rate these are dropping and how everyone just keeps getting better and better. It's just a good time to be a post guy.
You had a chance to work with actor Burt Reynolds.
I did.
So how was that?
It was really amazing. It's funny, that interview is actually in 2 different feature films now. So it was recorded, I think in 2016, maybe 2018, a while ago. Maybe 2018, I think it was 2018. And for a movie called Movie Money Confidential. And it's a movie about raising money for movies. So kind of an interesting premise. We were doing elevator pitches in actual elevators and recording them. It's got some cool stuff in it. It was directed by Rick Pamplin, and his wife Maggie was involved, and Scott DuPont was our producer. And it was great. I might be the last person to have ever put a mic on Burt Reynolds. That's possible. I won't swear to that. And I only say that because that interview is then used in another feature film called Burt Reynolds' Last Interview. And that one has Quentin Tarantino in it and a bunch of other great people. And I was able to do all the post-production on that with my good friend Sergey Kosinko, which is some of the best ears in the business. I've worked on a lot of projects with him, and I was really happy to have him on that one.
Nice. Now, how often do you get a chance to do the location sound and then do post?
I'm pretty fortunate where I get to do that a lot. I like to always do that. I mean, I love to mix what I've recorded and get to hear every mistake I've made and learn from it. So many people don't get to benefit from that. I have to eat every mistake I make, which is fantastic. Keeps me honest.
I feel the same way. It's just, some people are sloppy. Like, oh, fix it in post. Well, how about you fix it in post?
Sure.
And see what you think about it. And it changes your whole, and it makes you more careful. It makes you, you really want to do the best you can to get that dialogue.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when I don't get to do posts, when I just record, I record, I hand it off. I don't have any sense of ownership. You know, when I get to start from the beginning and have pre-production meetings and talk about the sound and talk about what we're going to be doing with the movie and what story we're telling and get to weigh in on things, that's what I like.
Okay, another feature you worked on is on Netflix called Screwball.
Yeah, so that's another film I didn't actually do the location recording for. I just did post-production. That's from Raconteur. They're down out of Miami. They're just a great group of people, headed up by Billy Corbin. That's the director that makes all their films. They're really known for their Cocaine Cowboys series. I've worked on one of those films too. And then I did another film for them, Square Grouper, which was awesome. But Screwball was great. Screwball is about steroid use in Major League Baseball. And it's just really interesting. They used kids for all the reenactments. So all the footage is the adults and all the news footage and stuff. And the interviews are all the adults now. And then all the reenactments are the kids. And the kids did a great job. I wasn't sure if it was going to work when the idea was pitched. And I was like, I don't know. It sounds kind of corny. It's kind of my initial thought. But Billy pulled it together. He made a great movie. And the soundtrack, there's like 60 cues and it's great.
I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to watch this now. So it really looks good. Now because the kids are saying the lines that the adults said, right? And so, I mean, everything was super synced well, you know?
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of bumping audio back and forth, a frame forward, a frame back. There was a lot of that.
Yeah, no, it looks really good. So, and I mean, just the trailer was fun.
Yeah, you should watch it. It's out of all the stuff I've worked on, it's one of the most entertaining. It really is. It's the one thing I've got to show my dad that he liked. He's a big baseball fan.
You were also sound mixer for Selling Superman. Tell us about that one.
Well, I wasn't the primary mixer on that. Interesting story on that, though. So Selling Superman is an interesting documentary. I don't even know if it's out yet. It's about a guy that inherited one of the largest comic book collections in the world. His dad had like a secret bunker under the house that he didn't even know about until after his dad died. And it turns out he has like every comic book down there, and sometimes like 100 of a comic book. But he has like Superman one, Batman one, the Hulk one. You know, I don't know the amount of money in comic books, but it's obscene. It's a lot of money. So they were coming here to have them authenticated and priced and things over in Tampa. And the first time they called me to do it, I was super excited. I was all ready to go. And I had a gig the day before. Well, actually it was 2 days before, but there was a travel day where I was with John Batiste. I was working for him for a while, and we had a gig with the Boston Pop Orchestra, and it was in Boston, and I guess I got COVID while I was up there working, and it's the first time I'd ever had it, and I had to give the gig to a friend, but luckily the friend crushed it, and so when they came back to Florida to film again, they called me, and so the second go-around, I actually got to go and record for them while they were in Florida, but they're jumping all around, recording all around the country and hiring locally, so I don't know how many sound mixers are involved in that film, but I'm very fortunate to be a part of it because I think it's going to be a really great film. All the stuff I've seen looks great. The guy Darren, that's the subject matter of the film, is just a great guy, and I really enjoyed hanging out with him. And it's a really just cool story. You know, I can't wait to see the film just to know more.
Yeah. All right, that's cool. Now, I also saw that back in the day you worked on a bunch of video games as a lead sound designer. Was it for EA?
Yeah, that's kind of how I got into the post-production industry. That was like my first corporate job. And I started as an assistant sound designer, and then I just worked my way up into where I was heading projects. And I got to work on a lot of great franchises for them. Madden football, NCAA football, NASCAR Thunder, NFL Street. That was the first one where I actually got to lead. You know, I got to write the design docs. I got to pick who I wanted to work with for art, the music, you know, what artists I wanted to work with, make the game, and then write the postmortem and move to the next project. It was pretty great. Then after that, I worked for another company called InSpace, worked on a game called Geist. They did primarily Nintendo games, James Bond, GoldenEye for the DS. Yeah, and then I left to do other things. You know, I've worked in a lot of different industries in my life. So
now, what's the pace like at, say, EA working on these games? I hear it's like crazy hours.
It is. There's kind of a badge of honor you get for working a 60-hour week, right? Like the people, it's a bunch of young kids that pride themselves on working really, really hard and really not having lives. And that was great. When I started, that's what I did. I worked those 60-hour weeks. I mean, for probably 3 straight years, I never even questioned the work ethic there and like just the whole outlook of what should be done. And it's awesome. I'd go back and do it again. It was great times. And I learned so much being around all the programmers, database management. That's my biggest takeaway. To this day, I still structure my databases just like I work at EA. You know, because you have 300 people working there here in Orlando, or at least we did at the time, and they all have to access the same files, and we all have to be able to pass them back and forth. And then we also have to be able to trigger sounds and stuff with code. So like your naming structures have to be right, you know? So yeah, database management, and that's what I took away. Well, that and sound design, I got to do a lot of really cool sound design and just learn about the corporate environment. That's its own thing to learn. Yeah. Just corporate stuff. I mean, there's an environment you just have to know, you got to know how to swim in those waters.
Now, you also talked about doing live sound, and you work with Jon Batiste.
Oh, I was so fortunate to get to work for him. It was just after he won all his Grammys and everything, and he had just released a super banger of an album. And he was coming through Orlando, and his Pro Tools playback engineer couldn't make it. So they were just looking for a local Pro Tools guy. And I'd never done Pro Tools playback live, but I thought it sounded great. I know Pro Tools inside and out, and I have an interface and a laptop, and I don't have 10 years of music school, but I can trigger a song. So they sent me the 2-track files, so I didn't actually have like a multi-track or anything. I just had 2 tracks, and they really didn't tell me anything. They're just like, show up and work this gig. So I just mapped out the metronome, put in a click, and had it bounce down where I had like with accent, without accent, and then some count, 1, 2, 3, 4 for different parts. And because I didn't know exactly what they wanted until I got there and got to ask them what they wanted. So I just kind of had everything ready and showed up and triggered all the songs for them, and it worked out pretty good. And then afterwards, and then my buddy Titus Woodham, they had him do front of house. So, a good friend of mine that I've worked on many projects with got to work with me on this gig. And afterwards, we went and had dinner with Jon Batiste and his crew, and they hired both of us to work with them. And I think I did like 5 or 6 shows, and Titus did a few more that I wasn't even on. He got to go to the White House, and because Jon Batiste played for the president, and then he did some other big gig in California. So, but we did a lot of great gigs for him. We did like the Root and Blues Festival, and like I was mentioning before, the Boston Pop Orchestra, a bunch of really cool things. And then the music is great. Like the music's wild. Like they are performers, and it was just every show was great.
All right. Okay. Let's. What? I saw something. You've been an actor on a number of things.
Oh, that's an interesting story too. So I never set out to be an actor, and I'm not a great actor, but I have acted in a lot of commercials. I started in 2020 during the pandemic. I was actually getting really into live sound, and my live sound career was just kind of going off at that point, right when, and my location recording too. I was getting a ton of gigs, and then the pandemic hit, and everything was canceled. But we got more commercials here because we were one of the few states here in Florida that was still shooting. We were all wearing masks, and we had COVID supervisors and all that, but we were shooting stuff. But everybody was super hungry, and it was hard to get jobs. So I started auditioning for acting roles too. And the first thing I got was a Coke commercial, and we shot it at my house, which was great because I got a location fee too. And it was like a worldwide commercial. And then after that, I did Disney and Advent Health and Bachan's barbecue sauce and healthcare.gov. And then I just recently did Advent Health again. And then I just did Hello Mood, which is like a cannabis company, like a Delta 9 cannabis company. And then tomorrow I shoot another Disney commercial, 7:30 as my call time.
You're doing it all.
The commercials aren't hard. Usually you're only on screen for a few seconds or something, maybe a line or two. You don't have to be a great actor. I don't think I could carry a lead role in a feature though. For the Hello Mood commercial, I'd read 20 pages off a teleprompter, and I'd never done that before. That is really, really hard. I have a newfound respect for those people. You know how like the president will read the teleprompter and he says one thing wrong and everybody makes fun of him. There's no way I could read that and not say one thing wrong. You know, it's hard. Oh, it's really hard.
So did you always want to work in the sound department?
It's funny. I went to audio school when I was maybe like 19, graduated high school, and did a little bit of community college. And I had a PC with a Sound Blaster 64 and a Roland keyboard. And I just wanted to make music, electronic music. I was like figuring out MIDI, figuring out like how it all works. And it was really hard. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start taking some classes just to kind of figure this out. And then I just kind of caught the bug and liked doing audio. And then when I graduated, I started recording bands. And then I got the gig with EA. I was recording. My first thing with them was Placeholder. They just contracted me to record Placeholder for their speech program, right? And it was for Madden football. You know, number 1 catches the ball on the 14th yard line. Number 1 catches the ball on the 15th yard line. It's like all those sections that are all stitched together in the game. And so I'd record all that. And then I think they figured out it was just cheaper to put me on salary. So yeah.
It takes me back. I was in the studio days as well. We used to do a lot of stuff for HBO, and I remember one time we had the voice actor came in, and voice talent, and he was like, coming up next on HBO, Monday on HBO, Tuesday on, and he'd just go through every possible variation. And I forget, he said one time he paid, being the voice of HBO, just doing that kind of stuff and then doing the promos. He said he paid for his house. It's like, wow, that's a gig.
Yeah, that is a great gig. Yeah, if you have the voice for it.
Yeah. I was always amazed at these guys. Some of these guys, they were $1 million voices, you know, and I was like, man.
Yeah. You got to have the natural gift, but then you have to know how to control it too.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have to mention any names, but give me the all-time worst on-set experience you had.
Wow, that's a hard one. The worst on-set experience. You know, I really don't have one to tell you. I've never had an experience so bad that it still resonates with me.
Like you just like, that's it. This is my last gig. I'm not doing it anymore.
I've never had that. I really have never had that. I mean, I've had stuff go bad. I've had equipment go down. And live sound more, you know, because it's just so much pressure because you have all the audience there. Like one time we had a Digico card explode on us, like so on monitors during a huge festival. So we had to like hot swap cards, and it like took us down for a long time. You know, and you have 10,000 people out there and everybody's pissed because they want their music, you know.
Would that be the biggest technical challenge you had, or?
That one was pretty bad. I mean, I've had a lot of like annoyances, like you show up and you're missing equipment or something because whoever packed the truck didn't pack what you need. A lot of that kind of stuff. But we always sort it out, right? You always leave yourself enough time for setup that you can fix those problems because you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, I've never had a horrible story, like just like horrible. I bet a lot of people do have a bad one. I've just been so fortunate in my life to not have that. And I think what's helped me out a lot on not having bad experiences is just perspective, you know? It's a lot of just what you make of it. Like in live sound, like, you know, a lot of people I work with are kind of what you call a white glover, right? Like, oh, I run the mixing board, you know, I don't want to pull feeder cable. But hey, if you're paying my rate, I'll pull your feeder cable all day long. You know, I like to work. I'm a blue collar guy, you know, I like to run the board, but I don't mind loading the truck. And I think that, you know, that's helped me out a lot.
Yeah. You know, for people out there just beginning their sound career, what advice can you share for them?
If you're just starting off, I wouldn't get too hung up on gear. You know, it's to make money in this industry, you really can't buy all the best gear and all the greatest stuff. It's really, I mean, unless you're getting just the biggest projects with the biggest budgets, you know, you have to be realistic in what you use. I think that's important.
If people wanted to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can go on my website, freqproductions.com, FREQ productions.com, and you can contact me through the website.
All right. And thanks to Michael Reed for being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks for talking with me. It was a lot of fun.
I'd like to say thanks to everyone for listening. If you have questions, send an email to locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. The Location Sound Podcast is part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.